This is Deborah Johnson for Women at Halftime, and I'm passionate about helping women use their untapped skills, resources, and talents to create their ideal work and lifestyle, making a difference in their second half. Well, hello, this is Deborah Johnson, and today I have Greg with me, a fun once a month that we get to come on together. So much fun.
Hi, everybody.
Yeah, and we're looking forward to this subject today. Does it work to create goals as a couple? And before we dive into that, I want to remind you that we have coming up a 5-month accountability and moving you ahead in your life, HeroMountainSummit.com. And you can look at that website, HeroMountainSummit.com, to find out more. But if you are looking to really grow and move ahead in your life and in your personally and professionally in 2021, this is an amazing program that I've put together. So make sure you check that out. So let's dive into this little subject. Does it work to create goals as a couple? And we are at kind of the beginning of this year, 2021, as this airs. And why do this together, and is it worth it? And why don't you start with that one, Greg?
Well, I think one of the advantages of working on goals together is, one, it keeps you together looking forward. Mm-hmm. So as you think about goals for the year ahead, there's, things that you'll want to accomplish as a couple, and, that tends to draw you together. So, it could be household things or, adding additions on or repairing something or, those kinds of projects. Or it could be, planning an active vacation that you got to train for. Mm-hmm. For those that are super active, maybe twice a year you plan for, a 10K race or something that, just gives you some goal that you're both shooting for. And you don't have to be shooting for the same times, but as long as you're both shooting for it, it kind of keeps you together as a couple.
Right. And I think there's some principles in here that won't just be for couples. I think it will be for relationships and friends and all of those things too. So, if you are not a couple listening to this, I think there's still some very valuable things that we are going to talk about today, such as this. As our world grows smaller, we've seen both of our sets of our parents, and their world kind of grew smaller as they got older, right? Mm-hmm. And we'll define that. But how we see goals in encouraging each other. This can be as a couple. This can be as friends together as well. But how we see goals playing that role, because what happened with them. Or, some of their friends.
I think what you're talking about isn't that the world in general sees their world getting smaller because communications are tighter and, we can Google everything and we can Zoom call around the world. That's not what we're talking about.
Yeah.
What we're talking about is that as we age and as we watched our parents, their worlds became smaller. So instead of thinking globally, they were thinking nationally. And after thinking nationally, by the time they were at the end of their life, their world had really shrunk to their living rooms.
Yeah.
And maybe going to the grocery store. And a bunch of things probably contribute to that. One is when your friends all start passing away, and there's just less and less people to reach out to and be friends with, that kind of forces that. Also, I think when you stop really expanding your, not just your mind, but your experiences, it seems like you're either expanding or you're shrinking. And
yes.
I don't know that that's true, but at least that's something we observed in our parents and we've observed in other couples in their 80s, is that their world tends to shrink.
Thank you for really defining that, because I kind of threw that term out as the world grows smaller, and it's like, well, yeah, it has, because of our connection.
Right.
But our parents had a totally different, experience of
Right.
that and worldview of that, just because of where they came from. Anyway. And one of the things that I really wanted, we recently, I brought this up in our morning coffees, and then we're going to talk about with the type of goals that we set as to get individually and together. But in facing our fears of the future, and I thought it was just kind of an intriguing question to see, what I was kind of afraid of for the next 10 years, and then what I was afraid of for you in the next 10 years. And I'll share mine, and then you can share what you feel. But, for me, I think in the next 10 years, one of my little fears is losing, mental capacity. I think my body will probably keep going, but with the statistics of dementia and Alzheimer's, what if I start slipping and I start I'd love to keep my mind, type of thing. And for you, I see like what your mom went through with diabetes and neuropathy and some of those things, and I would, because you've been a professional athlete, that is my fear for you, because I think that'll really wear on your psyche and for those sort of things. And so as I look forward to our goals and how we're setting them, I wanted to look at some of those. So
yeah, just so everybody listening knows, Debbie is showing no signs of dementia yet. So she is sharp as a tack. Her fear comes from the fact that her grandmother and her grandfather and her mom and her dad all late in life were diagnosed with dementia. However, they all passed away, except for her grandmother, before dementia could kill them. My dad, on the other hand, died of dementia at 91.
Yes.
And fortunately, I'm a long ways from 91, so that's not one of my fears. But that's where Debbie is, coming from. Me, on the other hand, I'm in midlife, and I'm starting to notice gravity take over. It's harder to get off the couch. It's harder to get out of bed. And I watched my mom, and there was a day that really hit me. She'd come over, and she was late in her life. My dad had already passed away, and she, needed to get up and go to the kitchen. And she really struggled to get out of a chair. And, I tried to show her that if you lean out over your toes and then push yourself up, you can do this. And she just got to where, she needed help getting out of a chair. And so my exercise regime includes not only weightlifting, but very functional kinds of things. Like I'll sit in a chair and just get in and out of it 10 times real quick, just to maintain that. Part of my routine 2 or 3 times a week is I climb a 5-step ladder up and down 5 times. And, I literally have the ladder in our workout room, and I climb that ladder. And that requires balance. It requires being on the ball of my foot. It transfers a lot of weight to the front of your leg. But I just want to be able to get up and down a ladder without falling and breaking my neck. So another thing I have is that I have a 2x4 laid across some bricks about 4 inches off the ground. And I use that as a balance beam. I just walk across the 4x4 a couple times, try to do it every day. And the reason is I want to maintain my balance. My mom fell and broke her hip because she tripped on a throw rug. And, just her balance, got to her. And those are the kinds of functional things that I work on. And Debbie worries about me because I'm always comparing my mobility back when I was in my 40s. And in my 40s I was still playing full court basketball and was used to being a professional athlete. And when I lose my balance or trip going out the door or something, it's a big deal to me.
Yes,
it's an emotional trauma.
It is.
And the disadvantage of physical loss is that you're mentally fully aware of what you used to do. Mm-hmm. If you get dementia, that's not fair because you're not even mentally aware that it's happening to you.
I don't know though. I don't know. Yeah, I think what you're bringing up though, these were great little tips for everyone as they're going to be working on balance and and all of that transfer of weight. But I think being able to identify some of these areas and then be proactive in like for me being proactive and keeping my mind sharp. I think there's many studies out there, but nothing's like totally proven and how to ward off of dementia and Alzheimer's. But I do know that there are definite studies that have been proven how important music is and how important some of those.
Yeah.
And it staves off the mental.
Yeah, learning another language.
Those are great things.
Yeah, great mental exercise.
And my Learn Music Again is a great program for helping keep the mind sharp for those who used to play that want to play again. That's why I started that. So. And these are important little goals for each other. And I do watch your frustration if you trip or, do something like that. So, and what I try not to, because I know those are your goals. So when I'm asking, it's like, okay, did you work out today? I want to make sure you keep up, but we want to encourage each other and those goals.
That Learn Music Again. Debbie's real passion was for people to keep their mind sharp. And she knows hundreds of people who took piano as a kid and then realized they weren't going to be Liberace and
people
stopped.
may not know who Liberace is.
Well, everybody in there listen to this podcast probably
yeah,
does.
They will. Yeah.
But something. Your motor skills will come back a lot faster than you can possibly imagine if you just start making that a routine.
Yeah.
And if you practice every day, it's weird how fast that can come back. And Deb's passion is to make sure your mind stays sharp.
Yeah.
So that is what's driving her in that course. So if that's of interest to you, or somebody that used to play piano, that would be crucial for them to pick up.
And in fact, most of the courses and things, even with my Hero Mountain Summit and Learn Music Again, those are all because at this point in my life, I'm helping others succeed and getting to a different place. Right. This is not about me.
Right.
I can sit and not.
You're totally trying to help others.
I really do. I mean, and that's why we're even doing this podcast and these very interesting subjects here. I wanted to get to, we have done through the years, and it's something that maybe many couples have not practiced doing, or even, you can have a friendship or a significant other. But toward the beginning of January, I think we did this more often when we were first married. And when, I don't know, when kids come along, things get a little crazy. But we would set aside time to talk about our yearly goals. And they weren't just resolutions. They were really where we kind of wanted to be. At least we'd talk about, where we saw our family, where we saw, ourselves. And they weren't these huge, big things. But we would at least put aside a little bit of time to, be together. And we've continued doing that in many ways of just connecting a little bit, not just once a year. We connect quite often. And but but we've also talked about the importance spiritually and emotionally in being able to share with each other what we're learning and how we're growing. And I think that's a important part in growing together. An important part.
Sharing goals with each other and how you're progressing it gives you something important to talk about.
Yes.
And as you get older, you don't want to lose that. Right. I know one thing. So we used to our first half of our lives was pretty structured. We had normal jobs and stuff, and we could set goals, in January and kind of keep track of them. Midlife, we both kind of went through career changes.
Yes.
And I know for me, my goal was survival and figuring out how to put enough food on the table for the next month. And so in that scramble mode, I was setting goals, weekly, monthly, but they were hard to share with Deb, and because you're literally scrambling. So I think that's probably when that sort of went away, because there wasn't the normal 8 to 5 kind of thing. So
yeah, when you're in business for yourself, it's kind of all hours of the day, and
exactly.
kind of set at different times, and we both had home offices. So a little bit different. So. And my goals have changed as well. Although we don't call them really goals. We just there's usually projects now, or things that I'm promoting and coming ahead, and I'm able to talk about those
you're
things.
Pretty good at setting when the next workshop's going to be, and when the marketing schedule needs to go out,
right.
Those kinds of things. But that's all kind of internal in your business.
It definitely is, and I'm just coming off of where I did in December plan year 2021, and there's so much uncertainty. I mean, we're in a year as this airs, there's still so much uncertainty. I am predicting, at least, but we have to at least aim for something. You can change it, but you have to at least have some place.
Yeah, because if you're aiming for something, you're moving.
Yes.
And it's always easier to direct a moving object than something that's stationary.
It's just like, just like.
Have you told your audience about your goal to become fluent in Italian?
No.
You haven't mentioned that yet?
I'm just going to tell you, I'm a little behind. Like a lot behind.
Well, what happened was that we were planning on going to Italy in October, and then COVID hit.
Yeah.
And our plans got blown out of the water last March of 2020, and our Italian lessons just kind of disappeared.
Yeah,
so I was just bringing that back up.
Well, we were both on that. It was a great little program, the Duolingo, and I still get like little messages, reminders. Oh, I'm still here, and I was doing really pretty well actually. But no, I totally let her. I'm going to have to start all over, I'm sure.
I know.
So no, that was one of our goals together, and that kind of brings up, if you do have those things that you're planning in coming up, like we have different little trips planning and that we're doing, so to keep in shape for it, whether it's a bike riding trip or a snowshoe.
And then countries keep closing down and changing our goals.
It does. But we're still gonna still work toward those.
We're still exercising.
Yes, we sure are. Well, I want to talk about different types of goals here, and then we can close off with a couple great little points here to leave you with some takeaways. But I wanted to talk about like emotional goals, our learning goals, our relationship goals, and our giving goals, which comes out of thankfulness. And but emotional goals, with your emotional, I usually put this emotional, spiritual, your personal, all of that, and how important that is. My father's, I end my keynote speech, the hero inside keynote speech, with the story of my dad, because basically he was well, perfectly well, never even went into the hospital. I mean, he was a paramedic and fireman, so he treated so many others. And then the next day, we find out he has 2 types of cancer, and we lost him in 11 weeks, literally. Right. But one thing, and I had a chance, of course, to spend a lot of time with him in those last 11 weeks and caring for him. And one thing that he said that really stuck is that I'm not afraid of dying. I know where I'm going, but I really like living. He had such confidence in that phrase, and every day was a smile on his face, was just this wonderful attitude. And man, it made just such a pleasure when some of the reality of taking care of an elder parent or an older parent is, oh my goodness, was difficult, giving oxygen and everything else, but he emotionally and spiritually stayed so strong. He had his little quiet time. He was a big man of faith, and he would be reading his Bible every single morning. He was out reading and learning something new. And I think that emotional, spiritual element is something we always need to have at the forefront of our lives, and really share with each other. What are some of your comments on that? Like yes and or
Well, no, your dad was wonderful that way, and we've talked a lot about a spirit of thankfulness, and you were wanting to talk about giving goals. And in Ephesians 5, it says that we should work hard with our hands so that we have something to give to those who are in need. And I know something I tried to nurture, and I did pretty well, was every time I got a commission check, it was to be thankful. And when you're thankful, and somehow you'll look at that check as you didn't really deserve it, but you'll take it. It reminds you to share a little bit, because there's a lot of people around us who don't necessarily get that commission check. They tried as hard as I did and just weren't able to cut it. And I think thankfulness leads to graciousness. You and I don't need some organization to help us figure out who's in need. If you pay attention, you recognize that people are struggling all around you, and if you got a little bit to share, go ahead and share it. And I think if the world was full of more grateful people, probably a lot of our problems would be lessened. And so, Deb and I tend to have giving goals, or if we don't call them goals, we call them people we're keeping an eye on.
Yes, definitely. Definitely.
So, and that's just gives us a good motivation to work.
It really does. And for us, as you're talking about thankfulness, because there's been periods of time in our life that we've been given to.
Yeah.
And it makes you, you were going through seminary where you had 3 kids at home and working a full-time job, and it was rough. It was tough. I was wearing
and
a couple
tight.
very tight. And so there's been, times in our lives that we felt like, we were just very, very grateful. And so to be able to just have an eye open, and it's not like you don't have to write all these things down. You can just be looking out for those things. And I think that's an important thing.
Right.
And also, our learning goals and keeping, reading together. We often share, what are you reading now? What articles are you reading? And, and all of those things. I think that's a really healthy thing as a couple or a relationship together, to keep each other, moving ahead and growing on that. And
and ways to keep goals is to sign up for classes, sign up for podcasts. You end up completing something, and you without realizing it, moved ahead.
Yes.
And stuff doesn't have to cost tons of money to cause positive movement. And I typically have a goal of reading through the New Testament once a year. We were studying Italian, and that was giving us healthy goals. I think having a couple of activities through the years that you are training for, just keeps you motivated to hit the gym. If you join something, you'll keep moving forward.
Right. And also, I think with, keeping a circle of relationships and connections, we've come off
especially with people that are growing.
Yes. Oh, yes. I like to be around people that are growing, and it inspires me. And because I do so much inspiring of others, it feels. And, I tell this story that I had started at the beginning of 2020. I started my happy hour. I was going to do one happy hour. And it was on a Thursday night, just, on Zoom because everything was shutting down. And, the people that were, and it was, a small group. I think they had about 10 of us. And they said, no. Aren't we going to meet next week?
Yeah, here we are 8 months later.
Yes. As we record, this is actually at the end of the year now, and I've kept them going.
Yeah, 9 months later. Yeah.
Yeah, all the way to the end of the year, weekly when we were in town, and it was quite something. And it's been so special that way because these people that show up want to keep growing. And I ask them every week, what's new and what can we help you with? I want to know how they're growing, period. Right. And it's really helped me restructure my business a bit. And in fact, when I was planning my 2020, planning your 2021, I was thinking, I did this the years previous. I've got the outline. I totally changed it because of the year we went through and those relationships together. And I think understanding how our relationships change with friendships, they also do with a spouse or with significant others. Our focus has changed. I mean, when we had kids, there was not a lot of time just to sit we'll just sit.
Yeah, right.
We were both scrambling.
Right.
and then a kid would wake up and then it was kind of different. We're past a lot of that. Although, having a good adult kids, there's still things that come up often.
But it isn't like when you have kids wake up 6:30 and they hit the ground running and don't stop till 8.
Yeah, and you don't have a time for a shower or breakfast or eating or anything, and you're working and everything else. So anyway, well, I kind of wanted to end on this little phrase here that your circumstances may change, but we can stay on course with what we can control. And figuring out when we're talking about goals, whether personally, whether as a couple or whatever, or with a significant other, with a friend, if you get together and set some of these to kind of spur you on, to stay on course with deciding what you can control. And then you just have to let go what you can't, like our travel.
Right.
We had waited so long to be able to take some of these trips, and now we keep canceling them because we can't, we've traveled in the U.S., but we can't get out, and it's, we can choose to be really frustrated by that or, okay, what can we control? Mm-hmm. And, I think that's an important mindset at this point.
I think part of what we're trying to say is that when you're setting goals, you can only set goals regarding things that you have control over. Mm-hmm. So, for instance, you and your spouse cannot set goals to lose 10 pounds. And the reason is because only you have control over whether you will lose 10 pounds. You have no control over your spouse. Mm-hmm. One of the things that used to happen in sales a lot is we'd set sales goals. Mm-hmm. And the sales goal was a number. Mm-hmm. The problem with that is that number was completely arbitrary. It's based on past experiences, but it's got, no reality tied to it regarding, where's the economy going to be at? The people you're calling on, are they, staying solvent? they tend not to take into consideration whether your company can supply what you sell, because if they can't supply it, you don't get the sale. So what you could be in control is the number of calls you made, the amount of activity you kept at, the amount of follow through that you did. You can control all of that, and generally those things end up resulting in sales. So when you set goals, make sure you're setting goals for things you can control.
I think that brought up a great point. It's a little humorous, but you can't control your spouse.
No. No.
and it would be very frustrating if, I knew you were wanting to lose 10 pounds. And I think it would be very frustrating for you if every single day I said, okay, how many, did you lose a pound yet? Did you lose a pound?
Right.
Yeah, that would not go over really well.
No, that would not be helpful.
So, but I can say, well, how are you doing? And this is where I'm at. And, but being responsible for me. And I think that's a healthy mindset. It's a healthy, overall, it's healthy for a relationship, and because we're responsible for ourselves,
right?
And we want to encourage the other person along for them, to be able to keep going. So, well, this has been great. I have not heard a lot of podcasts or talks on this and creating goals as a couple, because I'm thinking, oh, that would be disastrous. But really, if you approach it correctly, I think
it can build your relationship.
It really can build your relationship, and doing this together as you can look forward to. You have to take ownership of what you are doing. But if you can share that together, it's a little risky, because then you can ask me just to say, how's your Italian coming? And I can just laugh and just say, not so good. So, kind of, but, when there's those little specific goals to work toward, that's where I say you always work backwards with the end in mind, and so you can have something to work toward.
Right.
So that's always very healthy. So, well, thank you all. Thank you, Greg, for joining me today.
You're welcome.
It was so much
Good
fun
to spend time with you guys.
Yes. And a little reminder again that HeroMountainSummit.com. Check that out, that it is coming next week. What it feels like when you're driving on the wrong side of the road. There are some very good principles to this. I thought this was a great principle, because as I've been working out on my stationary exercise bike, and has some visuals to it, I have one of those iFit bikes. And in some of those foreign countries, we are on what really feels like the wrong side of the road. But you have to stay there. You can't move off of those. So what that feels like, how to adjust, and really how to get on making that wrong side feel like the right side if it's where you're supposed to be. So we will talk about that next week. And if you've loved listening to this, please subscribe to this podcast. And you can check us out a little bit more at womenathalftime.com or goalsforyourlife.com. And I will look forward to being with you next time. And this is Deborah Johnson. Bye for now. Thank you for joining us on Women at Halftime. Visit goalsforyourlife.com or womenathalftime.com for many more resources, downloads, and programs, or to get in touch with me. I'd love it if you leave me a review and tell your friends. So until next time, this is Deborah Johnson, signing off.